is going on, everybody? My name is John Solo, and welcome to another Star Wars theory. The life of Anakin Skywalker is, without a doubt, one of the most well-researched and documented parts of Star Wars history. We follow him from the beginning of his journey when he's just a slave on Tatooine, through his training under Obi-Wan, his fall to the dark side, and ultimately his redemption at the end. And what's so poetic about Anakin's story is that he and his son Luke end up enduring very similar trials, from being raised on a planet that they both can't wait to get away from, to the temptation to join the dark side. The key difference between the two is that while Anakin ended up giving in to the dark side, Luke was able to resist it. And today, we're going to theorize why exactly that is. As I mentioned, Anakin and Luke had very similar origin stories and obstacles to overcome. One obstacle in particular was their ages. In The Phantom Menace, while the Jedi Council discussed the possibility of Anakin becoming a Padawan, they expressed some concern over him being too old and want to deny him.
He's too old.
In The Empire Strikes Back, Yoda uses similar reasoning for refusing to teach Luke.
He is too old to begin the training.
Obviously, both of them end up receiving training, but what's interesting and sort of weird about this is that while Anakin is initially refused at the age of 9, Luke is 19. There's so much concern about age, yet the guy who should realistically be considered the bigger risk is the one who doesn't stray from the light. Now, this is where I would normally dive into Star Wars lore and attempt to explain why exactly age is so important to the Jedi and Sith. But today, I decided to recruit some extra help and invited on my friend Alex from Star Wars Explained.
Thanks for having me, John. To fully understand this theory, we have to explore why the Sith and Jedi recruit the way they do. We need to know why Anakin and Luke were considered to be too old. The Sith, as we all know, use negative emotions to fuel their power in the Force. So when they were recruiting, they would look for damaged people. Darth Bane is a perfect example of this. He was abused by his father, who he unknowingly murdered, and forced into fighting in a war he had no stake in. The ancient Sith wanted the emotionally unstable, and they encouraged competition and even murder to weed out the weak. They would often recruit children, but had no issue training adults. A Sith's power comes from giving into and building off of their negative emotions. So the Jedi wanted to raise their recruits from a young age in a very controlled environment, so their emotions would be very stable. By dulling emotions and instilling discipline at a very young age, the Jedi believed their knights would be impervious to temptation by the Sith. So from the Jedi Order's point of view, taking on an older youngling, even someone of Anakin's age, was a risk. A child who had grown attachments to family and friends would be more susceptible to give in to their negative feelings, which is exactly what we see happen to Anakin after the death of his mother.
So in the end, the Jedi Council's concerns about Anakin ended up being right. The death of his mother caused him to go on a murderous rampage, and simple nightmares about the death of his wife caused him to fall to the dark side completely. Don't misunderstand me, these are emotionally taxing events, and of course the manipulation from Palpatine played a role in this. But with Anakin, we can see why exactly the Jedi Council have the policies that they do. However, Luke ends up going through some pretty traumatic situations himself. He discovers the incinerated corpses of his aunt and uncle, the only family he's ever known who were killed by the Empire, sees his mentor and friend murdered by Darth Vader, gets beaten bloody and his hand chopped off by Darth Vader, who reveals just minutes later that he's his father, and Luke is even forced to fight him once more after this. Yet when he finally gets the upper hand and is able to strike down the man who caused so much misery in his life, he doesn't give in to his emotions. He doesn't even submit while he's being tortured by the Emperor just to make it stop. So what's the big difference between Anakin and his son Luke? According to this theory, it's their families. One can't deny that Anakin had a loving mother, but the situation that he and her found themselves in was far from stable. They were weak, impoverished slaves who were easily pushed around by the surplus of more powerful people in their community. This kind of upbringing does not result in someone who's emotionally stable, and by the time they get him to the Jedi Academy, it's too late to numb his emotions. When you take a look at Luke though, his family life is actually pretty solid. They may not have much money, but they aren't slaves. And he's also got some great friends, unlike Anakin, who was bullied by other people his age. Through living a stable life, Luke is able to experience the full range of his emotions and balance them appropriately. In this way, he's more like the Jedi that Anakin served on the Council with than Anakin was. Only instead of being able to suppress the strong emotions like the Masters, Luke had a healthy mixture of them. And it's because of this that he was able to avoid bending too far towards the emotional dark side of the Force. So now it's time to tell me what you guys think of this theory. Leave me your thoughts in a comment down below. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this episode, share it with any Star Wars fans you know, and subscribe for weekly Star Wars content. Before we take off, I want to give a huge shout out and say thank you to my friend Alex from Star Wars Explained for helping me research and explain this theory. If you're a Star Wars fan and want to learn more about the universe, he's got the content you're looking for, so make sure to go check out his channel. There will be a link in the description down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll be seeing you very soon. In case you forgot, my name is John Solo, and remember, John shot first.